Okay, thank you. Alina has hit the recording button. So just a reminder that this meeting will be recorded and will be available on the CJCC YouTube page shortly after the meeting. Okay, my clock says noon. So let's get this party started, everybody. Welcome to Conversations with an Expert, sponsored by the CJCC and Workgroup One. And we are very excited to have you guys join us today. And just a little bit of housekeeping. Please keep your microphones on mute so that we can give all of our attention to our speaker. Also, feel free to drop camera if you would, like to eat your lunch privately. That is absolutely an option. But feel free to keep your camera on if you want to as well. But we just ask you to mind the mute button and so that we can enjoy Tamika's presentation. So without further ado, we are excited to have you guys here today for a presentation on teen dating violence. I will remind you that this presentation is being recorded, and also just want to make a statement that some portions of this training may involve sensitive and uncomfortable topics for attendees. Please don't hesitate to step away, take a self-care break. If you need to. We will post contact information at the end of this presentation if you would like to reach out for further resources. So I will do a quick introduction of our speaker, and then I'll turn the program over to her. So we're very excited to have Tamika Daniel with us this afternoon. Tamika is the Deputy Director of the Georgia Legal Services Program. She previously served as the Managing Attorney for the Macon Regional Office of Georgia Legal Services, where she has spent her entire career as an attorney. Ms. Daniel is a 1997 honor graduate from Clark Atlanta University. She is a 2002 graduate from Mercer Law School. Ms. Daniel has been practicing law with Georgia Legal Services since 2002, where she primarily handled family law, housing, elder law, and family violence cases for low-income Georgians. Ms. Daniel has conducted numerous trainings on domestic violence issues throughout the state, training legal advocates, attorneys, law enforcement officials, and judges on the issues of domestic violence. And in 2020, Ms. Daniel was appointed by Governor Brian Kemp to serve on the Georgia Commission on Family Violence. So I want to welcome Tamika Daniels this afternoon to our program. And Tamika, I will turn the program over to you now for your presentation.
Thank you so much, Carla. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. I know these days get longer and longer, and they're filled with more and more presentations and meetings and talks, but I am so excited to be here with you this afternoon. I was sharing that I'm a little rusty. I have been out of direct services for a little over 2 years now, and this is probably the most fun part of my job that I miss doing, so I'm happy to be able to come and talk with you, even if it is virtually. I don't think I'm as funny on virtual as I am in person, but I'm going to try to make you smile at least once before the presentation is over. So we're going to jump right into it. I am with Georgia Legal Services, and some people may be wondering a little bit about the program. So before I jump into the presentation, I want to make sure you understand who we are. We are a nonprofit statewide law firm, and we cover 154 of the 159 counties here in Georgia. Civil cases only. So my running joke is, if you get arrested, don't call me because I can't help you. I don't do anything with criminal. I see I made somebody smile already. So I have reached my goal. Nothing else I say will be funny or will cause you to smile. So I've already hit my target audience. I'm excited about that. And so I just want to give you a little glimpse of the map to show you kind of where we are located. So we have offices in Albany, Augusta, Brunswick, Columbus, Dalton. We have a farm workers' rights division that's in our downtown Atlanta office. We have an office in Gainesville, Athens, Macon. Our Piedmont office is actually downtown Atlanta, and we have an office in Savannah. The Piedmont office covers the counties that are shaded in the dark gray up top, so everything except the Atlanta metro area. And so what do we do at Georgia Legal Services? We've been in existence for over 50 years now, and we represent Georgians with low incomes. We try to provide them opportunities out of poverty. And we do that by providing free legal services in the area of family law, housing, public benefits, eviction prevention work, farm worker rights, and education cases. And so that's kind of where our bread and butter. Most of you, if you have heard of us, probably know us through the vein of domestic violence work and the family law work that we do. And unfortunately, I think we are one of the best kept secrets in Georgia. And so it's always my mission whenever I have an opportunity to speak with people to let you know who we are, where we are, and that we're here to help you. And we want to do all that we can. So let's get to the whole reason why we are here today. We're here to talk about teen dating violence because it is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. I think it's appropriate that is in the month of February, a month that's known for love. And we think about all the importance that people have put around the holiday of Valentine's Day. And how many of us have really stopped to think about how young people feel around this holiday, you know, especially the young ladies who don't have a Valentine, or they're not receiving any gifts, or they don't have a special someone that cares about them or that they feel cares about them. And so it brings up all types of feelings for young people that I don't know we as adults ever accurately and efficiently address with them. So we're going to jump right in with the hard stuff. And in my preparation for today, I wanted to see what are some cases that have made the news specifically in Georgia, because as an advocate who used to reach out to the local school systems to try and gain access into these areas, some of you would be surprised with the amount of resistance that I received and the number of no's that I received when I would reach out to a school. I'll never forget, I contacted a middle school and they said, "Oh no, you need to go call the high school. I think you called the wrong number. We don't have those kinds of issues in middle school. Go talk to the folks over at the high school." And then the folks at the high school saying, "Oh no, we don't have those problems here." You know, it's just not something that we deal with in our communities. But these cases show otherwise. So this particular case came out of Evans, Georgia, where a young woman, Brinley, was gunned down by her boyfriend. Now, this couple had been dating since the 8th grade. So we're talking a multi-year relationship. And there was a quote from the district attorney that says, you know, this was because of his uncontrollable rage. This young man decided that if I couldn't have her, then nobody would. And he took her life. She was 20 years old when she was killed. And then we moved to the story of Destiny Virgin. In 2018, she was killed by her boyfriend running down the middle of a busy street in Columbus in the middle of the day, going to different cars, pulling on handles, begging for help. He shot and killed her. Broad daylight. She was 18 years old, had just graduated from high school, and was about to enlist in the military. And then we take a look down in Savannah. A 13-year-old girl was gunned down by her 16-year-old boyfriend. I think the thing that stood out for me in this particular scenario was when they interviewed the mother. She indicated that she didn't even know that they were dating at first. I mean, as a parent, you think about it. Your 13-year-old daughter is dating, you know, in my mind, that's a little young, no judgment, but that's a little young. So you might have not thought that my child would be dating at that age, because these young people are very slick and they are very good at hiding things. And so we have to be vigilant to make sure that we understand who's coming in and out of their lives and what could be happening. The other thing that struck me was her mother believed that she was trying to end the relationship. And for any of us who've done any type of domestic violence work, we understand that the most dangerous time for a victim of domestic violence is when they are attempting to flee the situation and leave that relationship relationship. So leaving is a process. It's not an event. And we need to help prepare them, whether they're young people or they are adults. We need to prepare them for what could happen and make sure that they are able to exit safely. So we talk a little bit about statistics because you rarely see a presentation without some statistics to kind of give us some feedback to realize where we are. We're talking 1 in 3 high school students have experienced or will experience physical or sexual violence. 1 in 3. When I've gone into these schools and I share that and I tell the young people, just look around, look at the person to the left of you and to the right of you. We've all had that experience. It starts to help make it real for them. The other thing that I notice is young people are very telling, and they'll let you know, like, oh yeah, this happened to my friend, or this happened to me. So I'm familiar with what you're talking about. The other statistic is that girls between 16 and 24 experience the highest rate of intimate partner violence. And so it is critical that we reach these young ladies earlier, sooner, so that they understand what the issue is. Now, I will refer to the victim throughout this presentation as female, but you all understand that domestic violence and dating violence definitely works both ways. However, what we're seeing is more times than not, the victim is female. 43% of U.S. college women report experiencing violent or abusive dating behaviors. That's almost half of our college age young ladies. And what I find when I go into the schools, I can give a presentation. I think my largest presentation to date was in front of about 1,000 young people up in Atlanta one year. And I am not exaggerating when I tell you that I could hear a pin drop in that auditorium as we talked about dating violence. And it's not because I'm just an excellent speaker, although I think I'm okay. I think it is because no one was really talking to these young people about these issues. They were not getting into the meat of what they're dealing with. And so to have someone be able to relate with them and explain or put a name to what they were dealing with, I think they found it interesting, and they paid attention, and we didn't have any problems with folks just kind of zoning out on us. 80% of girls who have been physically abused continue their relationship with their abuser. Just let that sink in for a moment. Because I think as adults, we think, oh, the first time he hit me, I'm done. And surely my child would be done, or my neighbor's child would be done, or my grandchild would be done, and they would walk away. But if that doesn't happen with adult women, we absolutely can't expect our young girls to have learned that at an early age, particularly when we are not sharing that type of information with them. So that is shocking. Another shocking statistic: 1 in 5 women in college will be sexually assaulted. And so I think that is ripe training ground for dating violence issues. I remember reaching out to local colleges and doing presentations at the Georgia colleges and the Bruton Parkers to anyone who would listen, so that we could talk about what the issue is, but more importantly, share the resources that are available in those communities, because sometimes those young ladies don't feel comfortable reporting on campus. They don't want their information to be shared, so they don't share it, but we have to let them know, hey, there's a community out here that will support you. They understand what you're going through, and they're not going to judge you. So we want to leave those lines of communication open. 81% of parents believe that teen dating violence is not an issue. That was shocking to me, but I believe it because I can't tell you how many times I hit a brick wall as I tried valiantly to reach out to youth serving organizations to allow me to come in and do a presentation for their young people. They just didn't get it. They didn't understand that that was a problem. Now, admittedly, it's been several years since I've had to do that type of outreach. So I'm hoping that it has gotten better, but it was terrible when I first started, and just the rejection day after day after day. The Georgia Domestic Violence Fatality Review did a project, and they found that 49% of homicide victims began their relationship with the person who ended up killing them when they were between the ages of 13 to 24. That is staggering. to know that we're starting that young and that person eventually ended up killing them. And so that's why it is critical that we start not just in the high school, but in the middle school with reaching out to young people to let them know what the issue is, what this looks like, and what it means for them. So we're going to push through and we're going to talk. I like to give a definition of what it is we're talking about. Teen dating violence is a pattern of control and abuse. We're just dealing with smaller bodies. We're dealing with little adults that are dealing with some of the same issues of some of our adult clientele that we are representing. And so there's the physical, the sexual, the verbal, emotional, the digital, and we'll also touch a little bit on stalking. Now, the physical abuse is the easier one for us to identify because that's going to leave some type of mark, some type of bruising, some type of situation that a victim would have to explain how you got that black eye, how you got that scratch on your face, and hearing what the explanation is, whether or not it's believable and whether or not it causes you to ask additional questions. The sexual abuse, of course, is the unwanted touching, the forced sexual conduct that happens with adults and verbal. That's one that's a little harder to catch because most people are not doing it in public. Most abusers are going to be smart enough to know that if I speak to her in this manner and around other people, they will begin to tell her that this is not normal and this is not right and it shouldn't be happening. So that's more behind closed doors. The biggest thing that our young people are dealing with now is the digital abuse. Our kids are so tied to their devices. They do not leave a room without their devices. They spend countless hours through social media being connected at all times. And so that is a ripe area for abuse. And then there's the stalking, the repeated unwanted attention and contact by somebody that causes fear in the mind of the victim. And so often when I'm talking with teens, the way they will describe the violent incidents are we fought or he and I fight. They describe it pretty much as mutual combat. And so some studies will show that females are more often the victim at a higher rate. Other studies have shown that the rates are pretty similar, that the violence is kind of proportionate. The difference is the severity of the violence. At the hands of the males, you're going to see more of the sexual assault and more of the physical abuse. At the hands of the female being the aggressor, you're going to see more of the psychological type of things. And the girls, however, being a victim of dating violence, have reported serious harm like physical injuries. They suffer from depression, substance abuse, and some even suicide attempts. So we've got to address the issue. This is the standard cycle of abuse that we are probably all familiar with. Unfortunately, I always give this little disclaimer to the young people. If you went out with a young man and everything went great, you had a great date, he walks you back to your door and he leans over and you think he's going to give you a hug, but he punches you in the face. How many of you would go out on another date with him? And invariably, no young lady will raise her hand. And so I have to explain to them that unfortunately, domestic violence doesn't work that way. They reel you in by being sweet and having the honeymoon phase and everything's calm. And then the tension starts to build. And then there's an explosion. And without some intervention, some counseling, some help, that cycle is going to continue because he's going to apologize and do what he can to make it right. And then the cycle starts all over again if we don't have some type of intervention. Only 33% of teens who are in abusive relationships ever tell anybody about it. So think about what I said earlier. 81% of people who are in a relationship and they get abused by their partner, 81 stay. We've heard a woman's going to be, brutalized 7 times before she will finally break away from that relationship. So only 33% of those young people are actually telling somebody what's going on. So as adults, we often lose the opportunity if we are not tied in closely with our kids. Checking those text messages, checking those social media accounts, checking in on the friends that they're hanging out with. If we don't know what's going on in their life because we're doing a little investigative work, we may miss some things that are teens are hiding from us. And so we want to make sure that we are prepared for that. We have to think about this. Our young people may not have fully understood how to deal with conflict management. They're still learning how to cope with feelings of rejection and what happens if a young lady tells me that she doesn't want to date me. You know, how many news stories have we heard, young lady shot and killed because she told a young man she didn't want to go out with him? You know, it's happening, and it is intensified with the invent of social media because our kids are so connected to social media and hearing what's going on and being in the loop at all times. So why is this a problem? Why are we spending our lunch and learn time on this beautiful afternoon talking about this issue? What we are seeing are kids who are victims of teen dating violence have higher rates of depression, higher rates of anxiety. They are getting involved in unhealthy behaviors like drug and alcohol and tobacco use. They are doing things that they normally wouldn't do. They're starting to steal. They're lying. Maybe they are starting to be physically aggressive as well. And then there may be thoughts of suicide. And so, what we're seeing is if there is violence in the adolescence level, it is highly likely and probable that they will experience those same types of violence again in high school and even college and beyond. So, one thing that I really love to do when I have young people in a room, I like to ask them, how many of you can raise your hand and tell me that your parent or your guardian has ever sat down with you and explained to you what it means to be in a healthy dating relationship? And I don't care if my audience is 50 people or 1,000 people. I've never had more than one or two people raise their hand, one or two young people raise their hand and say, me, you know, my parents told me this is what it means to be in a healthy dating relationship. Okay. So we're going to start with that frame of reference. And then I'm going to date myself here by showing the types of programs that I watched when I was growing up. The Cosby Show, which is the reason that I became an attorney. I wanted to be Felicia Rashad minus all those kids, and growing pains and family ties, and we see these family dynamics played out on television. They had conflict within their family. They had conflict within their relationships. But by the end of that 30 minutes, they had figured out how to work through the conflict by talking it out, by being supportive to one another, by, you know, having open lines of communication. But we fast forward a few years here, maybe a lot of years now, and you see what our kids are dealing with today. Reality television has taken over. And I like to tell people that I keep up with these reality television shows so that I can stay hip and young when I'm talking to young people and I can relate to the things that they are watching and that they know about. And they are always shocked when I know the characters on these shows. I will admit to you all, though, it is a guilty pleasure to see some of the foolishness that lives in TV land. But when these people are dealing with conflict, they're not having open lines of communication. There's not a lot of support going on. They're flipping tables and throwing bottles and throwing glasses at one another. And so, my question to you is if our parents are not sitting home having direct, frank conversations with our young people to explain what healthy dating relationships look like, they're not seeing it on TV, some of them are not seeing it modeled in their home. How then do we expect them to understand what it means to be in a healthy dating relationship? So, we've got to do a better job of sharing that information. And so, what are some warning signs that we want to look for? Extreme jealousy, the controlling behavior, the explosive temper, constantly monitoring the other partner's social media accounts. It never fails. I have young people and I'll say, you know, well, do you give out your password or your login information for your social media accounts? Oh, yes, I give it to my boyfriend. You know, why? Well, he says, you know, if I loved him, and if he really wants me to trust him, then I have to let him have access. And so I flip the question and say, well, do you have his login information? And 9 times out of 10, it's no. And so again, that's a conversation starter because I can say, well, how is that fair? If you're in an equal relationship, how is it that you have to prove your loyalty, but he doesn't have to do the same? And so that's another, you know, power and control issue. One national study that we've seen showed that young people ages 14 to 21, 51% females, 43% of males reported that they had been a victim of at least one type of dating violence, while 50% of females and 35% of males report that they had been a perpetrator of at least one type. I was blown away when I had a young girl come to me following a presentation. Not that she came to me, because kids always come to me at the end of a presentation to share what's going on in their life or what's going on in the lives around them. But this young lady said, I realize I'm the abuser in my relationship. The things that you pointed out to me are things that I've been doing to my boyfriend. And she just started crying. She had never thought about it. It had never been pointed out to her. And so we were able to connect with some resources and help her figure out, what her next move will be. But it was really enlightening for me, and just a reminder that it works both ways. And so sexting, I will admit, as I was Googling to try to find pictures to put in this presentation, and I Googled sexting, things have changed a whole lot since when I used to do these presentations to now, because one of the first things that popped up was, here's a guide to good sexting. Here's how to be better at sexting. I was completely blown away and not prepared to see that. And I've been doing this for a lot of years. It is not as taboo as it once was. You probably can't read that little schematic, but 48% of women had admitted to sending a sext, and 45% of men. So that's grown-ups. Imagine where the numbers are for our young people. And in speaking of our young people, we're looking at some of the headlines. Just in the state of Georgia, 50 students caught up in a sexting scandal in a North Georgia school. And then less than a month later, same thing happens at a Roswell school. And don't think it's just the big city, guys, because, it's happening down in the Lee County, in the Sumter counties, in the small counties as well. It is a major epidemic that we have got to address. What our young people don't understand is that it is a crime in the state of Georgia. The law makes it illegal to knowingly electronically send a minor any visual representation that's harmful. That's a picture, that's a drawing, anything that depicts sexually explicit nudity or sexual conduct. And sexting those images to somebody under the age of 18 is a misdemeanor of high and aggravated nature. And so we've got to make sure that they understand that there are consequences for your actions, and we want to be ready when those consequences come around. In general, a teenager who creates, distributes, possesses a sexually explicit image could be charged with a misdemeanor or a felony. It all depends on the particular facts of that case. And they could be charged with child pornography. The felony could be a charge of up to 20 years, and that particular teenager could have to put their name on the sex offender registry. So again, we have to be mindful about that. According to the New York Post, 40% of kids have been exposed to sexting by the age of 14. That doesn't scare you, nothing will. Studies have shown that 15% of 8-year-old girls had been exposed to sexting by the age of 8. So when we hear people say, oh, we don't need to talk about this in the middle school, we absolutely have to have a conversation about this. And we have to start that conversation earlier. We have to explain to people what you should do if you receive a sext that you were not anticipating. Explain to them why it's so important that you can't pass it along to someone else, because now you could be charged with child pornography. And so if we run into young people or people who work with young people, how do we help them if they disclose that they are in this type of situation? Number one, we have to believe the victim. It is so hard for someone to admit that they have been victimized. And so it's important that we not judge them and that we not criticize them for where they are in this stage of life. We want to listen to what they have to say and ask them if there's anything that they want us to do for them. But we also have to connect them with people that can give them the assistance that they need if they are ready to make that type of connection. One of the questions that I have been asked most frequently while I've been representing victims of domestic violence my entire career is, why didn't she just leave? Why do women stay and be abused? And I want us to stop asking that question. The actual question should be, why does he feel it's okay to put his hands on her? Why does he abuse? Let's put the burden on the person who is causing the problem, not on the victim. who we constantly put burdens on. And there are multiple reasons why people stay. And for the teens, they're pretty similar. This may be her first love, first boyfriend. She loves the attention. She loved him. And ladies, if we're being honest, we're fixers. And sometimes we have that mindset of, well, if I just love him enough, he'll change. I can fix him. I can love him through whatever his issues are. Maybe she's afraid of him, that he may hurt her, he may hurt a future partner or a family member. Or the age old, he started crying and he said, baby, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. I love you. I just get so mad sometimes. And then again, that cycle that we showed earlier comes back again. Now, thankfully, Georgia allows us to provide protection for young people, and they define the qualifying relationship that is covered by a level of intimacy that's not associated with a mere friendship or between persons in ordinary business, social, or educational context. So now, where there was loopholes previously, and sometimes our teens did not qualify for being able to seek protective orders, in some instances, they are now able to get the legal remedies that they need. What are some things that we can do? You want to contact law enforcement. You want to make a record of what has happened in the relationship, in case, heaven forbid, it progresses, but we want to try to make it stop. We want to connect that person with the local domestic violence shelters so that they can find out what other services are available. There may be free counseling available to this young person that can help them break free from that relationship. If appropriate, seek a stalking order or a protective order, which is a civil order where a judge will sign saying that that person who is causing the abuse can't have any further contact with the victim. And those are some of the first and early steps that we can do. And here are just two organizations that I have worked closely with throughout my career that provide assistance. And the number at the top, the 800-33 Haven number, so that's a number that'll connect you with the local domestic violence shelter in your area, to link you up with services that may be available to assist you. And then finally, this is how you can contact me. This is how you can contact my agency. Maybe you have someone that you want to refer for legal services based on the areas that we cover. Go to our website, check out who we are, pass along the 833 GLSP law number that can provide assistance and link people up. And I want to end by sharing a program with you all that I created several years ago. The program was called Secrets and Stilettos. It was a domestic violence awareness program that I created because I wanted to figure out how can we bring people together to talk about dating violence issues in a way that's non-confrontational, because I knew if I hung out a sign that said, we're going to talk about domestic violence today, how many people would show up? Maybe one or two people. And so I created that Secrets and Stilettos because people were like, hey, what's that? That's mysterious. Yeah, bring your girlfriends and come and find out. And so at the height of the program, just before COVID hit, our last presentation was in 2019, we brought in Geronda Pace, who was one of the survivors from the R. Kelly debacle, where he completely took advantage of a lot of young people. And I watched the program on television one day like everybody else did, and something in that just struck me. And I was like, I've got to find this young lady. I have to reach out to her because I want her to come and tell her story. So on a Saturday afternoon, we had over 500 people show up for a free domestic violence awareness program to learn about dating violence, domestic violence, what type of resources are available in the community, and what you can do to help someone or help yourself get out of that situation. And so I implore you, keep doing the work that you're doing, keep fighting the good fight, keep beating the drum and trying to get anybody who will listen as we talk about dating violence, particularly with our young people, because we are failing them by not having the conversations and giving them a safe space where they can ask the questions. And we recognize that their feelings do matter, that it's not just puppy love, and we're not just blowing them off, even though we think that they're way too young, and we recognize that they will have, multiple partners before they settle on that final one. We have to give some validity to their feelings and understand what they're going through, or else we're going to have them shut down and they're not going to talk to us anymore, and they will continue to suffer in silence. I'm happy to turn it over for any questions or comments that you all may have at this time.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tamika. If you guys have questions for our speaker today, please drop them in the chat right now. So we've got probably about 20 minutes that we can sit and take questions and just have a conversation together. So while you guys are thinking about your questions before putting in the chat, I do have a question, Tamika. You had talked about schools. What do you recommend for those of us who work, with this closely with the school system? What type of programs and when would you recommend that they start?
So I recommend that you partner if you have a local domestic violence shelter. Oftentimes they have a relationship with the schools and they can get in quicker than just somebody off the street. And so you want to build and partner in that relationship. That's what we started doing in Bibb County, was working with our local shelter and going in because they had programs. There's so much curriculum out there that you can access that's free. You want to be very intentional with your who you target, how much time you're asking for, because the schools are going to tell you we have chock full schedules. We don't have time for this. So sometimes you got to get in there when you can. You want to hit the information and move along. So I would definitely recommend collaboration, and I would recommend that you start in middle school. Don't let them trick you to saying that that's not something that's not going on in the middle school.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. We had one question. Let me pop back up here. Do you speak to churches?
Yes, I do. And we have attorneys across the state that will do the same thing. And so we'd be happy to connect you if you have a presentation need. We will try to link you up with somebody that can come in and do that for you.
Okay, excellent. And here's another very good one. How do you handle speaking opportunities and parents that are uncomfortable with these conversations for religious reasons, et cetera?
So of course we have to get permission. And generally when we come in, they ask to see what the presentation is about. I intentionally try to stay away from talking about sex other than mentioning that is a form of abuse, because I do understand that it's very uncomfortable. There are going to be some people that are just not comfortable with you coming in on that topic. And I understand that, but there were enough people who are interested in hearing the message that I kind of moved my efforts. And I said, I'm going to stop beating my head against this brick wall with people who don't want me. And I'm going to take my material to the areas that are more friendly and more progressive and ready to receive that information.
Okay. Yeah, that is just such a tough thing. We see that with Aaron's Law and the human trafficking curriculum, even though they're required by law, parents sometimes have a hard time letting go and letting their kids learn some things that they really need to learn to keep them safe. Let's see. Do you do talks at group homes? And if so, how do we get your schedule to come speak to our staff and youth?
I am going to drop my email and phone number in the chat. And again, it may not be me, it may be somebody from a local office in your area that would do it. It really just depends on what we have going on. Unfortunately, this is not my job anymore. I'm now with I manage the managing attorneys for our local offices, so I don't provide direct services to clients. But every now and then, my executive director lets me get out and put on this hat and do presentations. But the great thing is we've trained up a lot of other attorneys within the program who can come out and do these same types of talks as well.
Let's see. You said that you work with domestic violence victims. Do you also work with rape victims?
Yes, our program does assist rape victims as well. Sometimes there is a need for a protective order as well. But again, only civil cases. We don't do anything criminal.
Criminal. Okay.
I want to point out what I see here, that there's another notice changing the verbiage from teen dating violence to healthy relationship education. That is critical because that's less alarming for parents. If you hear that, oh, we're going to be talking about healthy dating versus teen dating violence, Means the
Mhm.
same thing, but it's all in how you package it and you present it. I also recommend that you do programming for the adults. So I would go in and I would do presentations for social workers and counselors. I would do presentations for teachers. I would do presentations for parents so that they hear the information at that level. And then they seem to be more comfortable when they found out that we would be doing it for the kids and allow us to come in and do it.
Okay, excellent. Erica has her hand raised.
Yeah, I just want to
Yes, ma'am.
quickly chime in because I'm seeing lots of folks drop into the chat asking Tamika to come and present. And bravo, Tamika. Thanks so much for being present with us today. I do just want to remind folks that our Lunch and Learns are recorded. So Tamika, with your permission, of course, then we always upload that to CJCC's website. So if you all have large groups and knowing that Tamika is only one individual, and that this is not her primary role within her position, you all are welcome to share that recording, right, with your internal networks and ensure that folks have access to the education and information. I just wanted to put that plug out there if that's helpful for folks.
Yeah, and we do generally follow up this presentation with an email to those who have attended with a link to the survey, as well as a link to the certificate of attendance. And usually if we've been able to get the presentation on the YouTube channel, we'll include a link to that as well, so that you guys will be able to find it. Let's see, I've lost my place in the chat. There was one about do you have anyone that can, or do you know where people can get reach out to someone who could do this presentation in Spanish?
Let me put my thinking cap on. Not right off the top of my head, but let me think about that.
Okay. That's always a question in my school district as well.
Sure.
We do. I observed a human trafficking curriculum last week that they presented in both English and Spanish. So I know that's a big deal in a lot of places. Let's see. Note about teen dating violence. Okay, here's one. Is it appropriate to speak to young people? I had sex ed in 5th grade, but we never spoke about teen dating violence or dating or these sorts of conversations at the 5th grade. Do we need to be pushing some of this information? I think summarizing like further down, maybe older elementary.
I'd be a little cautious there. I think I would wait, but I wouldn't wait beyond 6th grade because they're talking about the sex education classes in middle school, and they're talking about it, if we're being honest, in elementary school as well. But I think realistically speaking, middle school would probably be the youngest audience that I would target.
Okay, so middle school, 6th grade. What other questions do you guys have? I'll look back through here. Erica, Alina, did I miss anything?
Looks like there's a question on Tamika, how you all might serve minors within a civil suit, if that's something that you all do.
So we don't get involved in the service issue. That would be done by the sheriff's department. And I don't want to misspeak. My initial thought is they're going to serve the parent because the person is a minor, but we're not involved in that part of it.
Gotcha. And then it looks like also, Shakira, thanks for dropping that in there. Georgia Center for Child Advocacy did just drop the newest edition of the TARG, the Technical Assistance Resource Guide. I sent that out widely to the entire task force, I think about 2 weeks ago, but we are happy to drop that link back into the chat. It's an excellent resource, lots of great recommendations for curriculum that you all can go to your school districts or school boards and make those suggestions for those curriculums or programs to be delivered within those jurisdictions and really kind of serve as a mouthpiece for, of course, at the advocacy and importance of some of that education being delivered to school age children. So give me a sec. Let me find the link to the new TARG, and I will be happy to drop that in there. Just want to let you guys know Georgia Center does require you to input just a little bit of identifying information to download or access the TARG. That is only for their own recording purposes. just for data. So I think you're asked maybe your name or your email address in order to access the TARG. But again, that's just for them to have an idea of who all is accessing it. So give me just a second and I'll drop that in there.
Awesome, thank you. And yes, there is a presentation on the TARG. If you're not familiar with what that is, it looks at the Aaron's Law curriculum, which looks at sexual assault prevention training curriculum for K through 9, and the human trafficking prevention curriculum that is required by law and 6 through 12. It's an excellent resource. Krista, do you want to come off mute and say something about the February 21st? I'm excited. One of my school board members in my school district has already committed to coming to that meeting. So I think, this is a great opportunity to get the information out. So Krista, do you want to?
Yeah, we are doing that virtually. So I am trying to find the link and I'll get that put in the chat box for anyone that wants to register. But this will be a presentation where Tiffany and Nikki from my office are going to be going over the new curriculums that are put in there. They go over the laws, all of that. So I'll put the link that you can register to participate in that TARG presentation. Again, it's on February 21st. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I'll get that link and I'll drop that in the chat for you guys.
Awesome. Thank you. Does someone want to say out loud, like how to search for the TARG? Because I don't think when we do the recording that the chat is part of that. Alina, we could also put it maybe in the notes. So that folks.
I was thinking of attaching it to the follow-up email as well, if you all think that's appropriate.
I think so.
I also wanted to mention, Carla, and just put a plug out there. We too, and Krista, thanks for coming off and speaking a little bit about that you all have going on for Georgia Center. I actually reached out to Tiffany Sawyer at Georgia Center, who's over prevention and has been a longtime partner and stakeholder within the anti-trafficking network and the task force. And we have invited her to speak at our first quarterly meeting on behalf of the statewide task force. So the forum that you all are in right now, Lunch and Learn, obviously hosted and facilitated by Work Group 1. The entire task force will be coming together within the next couple of weeks, several weeks, to host our first quarterly meeting of the year. And we're actually we've requested for Georgia Center to do a presentation on that new edition of the TARG that's been released. So another opportunity to kind of learn about some of those new programs that have been vetted.
Yes, and Tiffany also was our October speaker for Conversations with an Expert on the TARG, and she gave us a preview of it. So if you go to the CJCC YouTube page and look at the Conversation with an Expert playlist, you will be able to find that. I think do we have another? Here we go. I know someone who is a college student and still very traumatized from being a victim of domestic violence while in college now. She was held down against her will by her boyfriend for days in his house. She later sought college counseling at the college she attended, but they offered no help to her. The college said that they had no way to help her because they had no resources for her. What is the best way that she can get the proper help, both free legal and free counseling?
So my recommendation would be to start with the local domestic violence shelter, the 833 Haven, the 1-800-33 Haven. You can tell how rusty I am. And that will link her up with the domestic violence shelter that covers her area. And then they can link her up with all of the services that are appropriate for her, whether they be legal or counseling or both. Because how we work is the clients generally reach out to the shelters first to begin the process, like if it's for a protective order, and then the local domestic violence shelter refers them to Georgia Legal Services for free representation in court.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. I have both of my children are in Georgia colleges, and sometimes, college kids don't always know how to find the services that they need. I think we have time for one more question. Christy, you have your hand raised.
Hey, I'm the child abuse supervisor with CJCC, and I've been dropping a few things into the chat as well. So wanted you guys to have access to the resource for sexual violence resources for Georgia. And so that also gives you all of the sexual assault centers in Georgia who also have the opportunity to provide counseling services and assist those clients as well. And I want to do other things. I used to do prevention education specifically for teenagers as well. So my program that I did was Safe Dates, really fantastic program. But Tamika's 100 on start as early as possible. There is data that shows that our children are have beginning age of 11. So forget talking about just dating. The sexual activity is happening that early, then you know the dating conversations are happening prior. So dropped a few things in there. Thank you guys so much for this. This is my love and passion. So thank you all.
Thank you, Christy. I appreciate you hopping in there for us. I don't see any other questions, but we'll just chat for a minute, give you guys time to kind of sort back through the chat and grab those resources. Alina has put a link to the certificate of attendance in the chat, as well as the survey responder link, which we would love for you guys to please go take the survey and give us honest feedback. We use this, the work group does go through the surveys, and we use them to plan additional conversations with an expert, and just making sure that, you know, we're delivering a product to you in a way that is useful to you, and, you know, making sure that this format is working as we intend for it to work. But Tamika, I just want to say thank you today. You just, I have, I took tons of notes, and when it gets posted, I'm going to go back and fill in my notes, and I'll probably end up writing about this at some point. But I just really appreciate you really filling us in on what teen dating violence looks like. And I wish I had had this information when my children were younger. And, you know, we talked about healthy relationships. We talked about that kind of stuff, but I don't think I really understood exactly what I needed to be telling them. And so I just appreciate you sharing your expertise with us. We don't have our next conversations with an expert lined up yet, but we actually are meeting right after we get off this call, and we will start working on that. So watch your channels for information on our upcoming conversations with an expert. We have lots of ideas. We just have not settled on one particular one yet. And just want to remind you guys, look for that email coming tomorrow. If you didn't get a chance to do the survey today, look for that email. We'll have as many links as we can possibly get on that for you. And we appreciate you guys coming. We appreciate your time. And Tamika, again, thank you. It was a fantastic presentation. And just appreciate you and the work that you guys are doing. As always, I just want to say a big thank you to the staff at CJCC. They are the ones that make this happen, all the technological behind the scenes things with Alina and Erica. And we appreciate you guys and the work that you guys do. So I think we will sign off. If there is nothing else, Erica, have you got anything else, or Alina, or can we say goodbye?
I think we can say goodbye. Thank you guys so much, Tamika. We can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure to have you here with us today. Please let us know if we can do anything for you guys on your end. For those of you that are hanging out, waiting for certificates and the survey, please keep an eye on your emails as well. That will be coming through. So we'll make sure to get that all out to you guys, and then we'll be sure to share the recording of this presentation on CJCC's website or YouTube page as well. So keep an eye out for that as well if you'd like to share that within your networks. But I think that's it. I will go ahead and adjourn us. But thank you all so much. And I hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
Thank you for having me.
Guys.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.